listener production.
I'm automotive commentator and journalist Greg Rust, and this is Rusty's Garage. For this episode, I'm in Melbourne on the eve of the Australian Formula One Grand Prix. The event is celebrating 60 years since the late great Sir Jack Brabham won the first of his 3 world titles. He's a legend of the sport who etched a special place in the record books, winning a championship in a car he constructed, a feat that is never likely to be matched in the modern era. Racing is in the family. His son David also made it to Formula One and fought tirelessly to regain and revive Brabham Automotive. He enjoyed a stellar career in sports cars, but it was never a certainty that he would follow a similar path to his father.
It always shocks a lot of people when I talk about how I started my career and my kind of life, because obviously with Dad being so famous as a racing driver and my brothers racing, it was kind of like, well, that was a given that would happen. But it wasn't like that at all. I think 2 was enough at that point for Dad, and we had a farm, and he really didn't want any of us to go racing, to be fair. Some of that's down to the fact that he went through a very dangerous period of racing, lost a lot of friends, and you know, he retired, and he retired mainly because of Bruce McLaren going in 1970, as well as Jochen Rindt, 2 of his mates. Jeff started only 4 years later, so he was like, you know, not that keen, particularly my mum as well. So that holding back kind of went all the way through to me. So he retired when I was 5, and I was in Sydney, and you know, soccer was my thing. So I never really went to racetracks or anything like that. I was just really keen to do my own stuff, and I was keen on the sport, and you know, even at a young age, just competitive, wanted to do the best I possibly could. I'd be in the backyard kicking a football day in, day out, you know, just always critiquing. So I was in Sydney, and then I went to an agricultural boarding school because I was groomed to be a farmer. And they didn't play soccer, so I learned Aussie rules. So that's where I got a sort of passion for Aussie rules. And then when I left school at 16, I went to America for 3 months to watch my brother Jeff race. He was racing in Indy cars in 82, and that was the first probably time I really saw racing proper. Saw a go-kart in a workshop. Didn't even know people race go-karts.
Wow.
Yeah, no idea. On the farm we had a bit like a go-kart. My neighbour and I had one, and we built one together. And
you went halves in it, I think, didn't you? Is that right? What did you do, the pair of you?
Yeah, well, that we just had a Briggs and Stratton with a bit of a steel frame and some wheels, and we just had a bit of fun. That was just a real basher, and that was just a bit of fun. That was not like an inspiration to go racing. It was only when I went to America the inspiration to go racing kind of sparked inside me. So I came back to Australia and said to Dad, you know what, I'd like to have a go at a go-kart. And the look on his face, you know, he was stunned, you know, stunned and shocked and like, oh no, not again, you know. And so he wasn't that helpful. So the neighbour that we had the wrecked go-kart, we went to Griffith to have a look at the racing there. It was a go-kart track there, and it was both of us like, wow, it was just a completely different world to what we'd ever seen before. You know, the smell of the Castrol R, the whole buzz of it. We walked around just, you know, trying to absorb as much as we can, and we went back and we talked about it. And, you know, I was working on the farm, he was working on the farm, and we put our money together and we bought a second-hand go-kart and off we went.
What was the kart? Can you remember details of it? The chassis, the engine, that style of thing?
Well, the engine was, we were racing in, I think it was Australia 100, or it was like 100cc Australia class or something like that. And I think it was a Yamaha engine. Mm-hmm. The chassis I don't remember. It was just an old chassis that we just picked up and off we went, really. And, you know, Dad came to the first race, which was a bit of a surprise. I ended up in hospital.
What happened?
Well, I because I'd grown up on the farm, driving cars flat out sideways, just the thrill of speed definitely was ingrained in me. Mm-hmm. Finding the edge, pushing more, finding more limits, that was always there, anything I did. That was kind of a natural thing for me. So when I jumped in the go-kart for the first time, I certainly surprised Dad because I just had that feel, because I'd done all that training prior. So I ended up, going around the corners and passing people and just had a feel for it straight away. And then someone went wide on the corner in front of me. There's like a long bend, U corner, and then it was long and fast. So some guy in front of me just drifted wide, and I got on the inside. I thought, well, that's easy. So the next lap, I'm right behind the guy in front of me, and he starts to slide. I can see the rear starting to go, and I'm thinking, oh, here's another. In the inside I go, and of course he didn't slide as much as I thought he was going to slide, and I've hit him. And of course we're going around the corner, we touch wheels, and I've just barrel rolled. And of course back then we didn't have like what they have now with all the overalls and stuff like that. I had a pair of jeans and a jumper. It was 30 odd degrees, and I just wore a pair of, I think I didn't even have like racing shoes. It was just, sneakers, And I ended up on my back, and my jumper came up, and my back was just going across the tarmac and just took all my skin off. So I've still got a scar today. From that very first race. Yeah.
What was the conversation with Mum and Dad like post that? Because obviously he was not too keen to begin with, and clearly your determination is already showing. So how did that go?
I think certainly for my dad, it was like, he's done. That's it. He'll never get up from this. You know what I mean? Mum hated me in go-karts. She really just never felt comfortable with it. But, once I got better, I got back in a go-kart and off I went. And I was at a race in Orange, and I won by half a lap or something. It was kind of greasy conditions, and I just went. And Dad was there. And that, apparently, he didn't tell me at the time, but he told me after. He said, that was the moment I knew that you could do this.
Okay.
And that you had something. And that's when he started to get behind me. So, I had an old cart and I was doing well in it, but he said, you're going to take this seriously, because he knew the commitment you had to make in racing. And up until that point, I really hadn't shown much commitment to anything. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was farming, but it's not really what I wanted to do. It was just there on the farm, So he ended up saying, look, are you serious about this? I said, yeah, absolutely. So he's, right, let's buy a new go-kart, new engine. And off we went and did kind of like a year and a half of karting, which was fantastic grounding.
Before I move on to the early part of your car racing career, I just want to touch on the fact that you about the farm life that you talked about. Was it Wagga Wagga? And are there any crazy harebrained stories from farm life for you before the racing career kind of really took off? You talked about sliding cars and things. You were clearly always driving something on the property, were you?
Yeah, and sometimes off the property. Oh God! When I think about all those moments where I could have lost my life, it's just scary to think about. It really is. I used to go to the local store. That was about a 5-6 kilometre run between where the front house is all the way to the store. Yeah. Probably a bit longer, but dirt roads. Lovely flowing dirt roads, drifting, all that sort of stuff. And then you get to tarmac. And then the tarmac, there was a long section leading into a bridge that went into a T-junction where the local Galore store was. And of course, on the way back, the challenge that I set myself was how fast could I go back over the bridge over the bridge and through a blind right-hand corner, how fast could I get on the exit of that by the time I got there, you know?
Like the glance at the Speedo was the
That glance at the Speedo on the exit of the corner was did I get through there okay, you know? So and when I think about it, I mean, the neighbours must have thought we were just reckless, because I mean it was just crazy. It really was. And I had one moment where I'm absolutely going flat out. I mean, I'm not lifting for quite some time. I'm in top gear. I'm going over the bridge. The thing gets light, and I'm going into a right hand corner, which is blind, and I've taken the apex. So I'm on the opposite side of the road. And as I've come off, a car's just gone like that. And that was a little bit of a wake-up call that I needed to settle down a bit. So yeah, that was one of my stuff. And also, you know, my brother came back from England, and I'd been driving his car. I actually did a rally in his car that he didn't know about, the Wagga Wagga rally, and didn't know what we were doing, but we just had a ball. And so not a scratch on the thing. He comes home the first day, and I go off to go to the. I'll go to the store. You know, off I went. You know, flat out. And I remember coming back into where we had the big main gates on the main road, and it was dirt, obviously a dirt road, and depending if there was any cattle or sheep in the paddock, I could leave the gate open. Because by the time I got to the store and came back, the gate, there was no animals around to come onto the main road. And the reason I left it open was because I'd go in there, I'd hit the handbrake, and I'd flick it one way, flick it the other. So then I'd go in between the gates and stop, get out and shut the gate.
Full World Rally Championship spec we're talking here.
Yeah, well, I should have been a rally driver, really. So, and I just loved doing that. And of course, I got it a little bit wrong, and I hit the strainer post. and this like hole in the front of this Mazda 626 that we had, and I was going, oh my god! I mean, it was so embarrassing, and the bodywork was right up against the tire, and I've had to try and pull it off, and you know all that sort of stuff. So by the time I got there and I walked into the kitchen, I went, I've got to show you something.
Ari Brabham perfecting the Scandinavian flick through the front gates. I love it. I'm not sure if I've got my facts straight here, so maybe you can set me straight on this one. Did you do a little bit of Gemini racing at one point, or is that not correct? Lee Diffie and I were talking in the lead up to this, and he wondered if you might have raced a Gemini at one point or driven one, and Paul Morris had raced one at one stage, and we couldn't figure out if you'd done a bit of that before you went into laser racing.
No. I went straight from karts, and I was actually going to be doing another year of go-karting, and then an opportunity came up to do the Ford Laser series that was just starting off, and obviously Goodyear were heavily involved, and Dad's connections with Goodyear, and I'm not sure whether Jack or someone found a sponsor. It was Solar Tint at the time, and they got behind us. We got a car very, very quickly, and it was of all lastminute.com kind of deal. Yeah. And off I went and did the Laser Championship with Scafie.
It was a great series, that wasn't. I mean, it was front-wheel drive, little Ford Laser, as you say. Mark Scaife was among those that were in it. There was some quality racing in that series, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. I mean, it was full on. And for me, you know, I always remember the press release. They'd already written a press release on how well I'd done before the race. So the expectation was a little bit high for me.
I want to get to that because that raises a really interesting subject. You're enormously proud of the Brabham name, that's clear, but it comes with this weight of expectation at the same time. How does David Brabham balance that? Because I sense in you at the same time you are, your own person who's carved your own career and stood very much on your own 2 feet. But at the same time, you're proud of the name. It's quite a challenging scenario, really, isn't it?
The only thing I've always sort of made comment about that is I think at the end of the day, it's about being comfortable in your own skin. And that takes a while. I think it takes a while for a lot of people. but also in terms of living under a shadow of someone who's done such amazing, great things that people just want to talk about that. Then you want to have your own career, and you're trying to find out who am I? If because when I was growing up as a kid, it was that's Jack Brabham's son, that's Jack Brabham's son. It was like, well, okay, but who am I? And it took time, and sometimes you have to have that confidence within yourself. And what drives confidence is success as well. So then you work harder to try and get that success to create your own identity. So in some way it was a motivator, but it also had a little bit of an Achilles heel as well.
Let's talk about the fact that you went from karts to front-wheel drive Ford lasers, but clearly the open-wheel path was something that you at some point decided, right, I'm going to go that direction, because in 86 you get into Formula Ford. That is, everyone looks back on the racing CVs of most drivers, and anyone who's had success has generally gone well in that class. And I still love those things today.
Oh, I do as well. I mean, I was at Bathurst the other week, and all the old Formula Fords were there, and even the ones that I was racing in that period. I just love them. So yeah, I mean, Formula Ford was such a great category, but I think what helped was there weren't that many categories, not like today. There's just too many. So everybody was channeled all the way through into Formula Ford from karting. So you always had a lot of talent in that category. And I remember the first time I got into a Formula Ford, it was at Oran Park, and we were doing a test, and I just felt at home straight away. Because I never heeled and towed properly before. Even in the laser, it was like, oh yeah, a little bit of this. But when you're in a single seater and the pedals are really close, and it's, the engine revs differently, and the brakes, and but literally within the first lap, I was going down there, boom, 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 it would just seem very natural. Yeah. So I could just concentrate on other stuff, which helped. And it was a challenging year because I made mistakes and whatever, but I also won as well. I won races at Oran Park. I won, so yeah, it was cool.
I think there was Surface Paradise success, wasn't there too?
Yeah, Surface Paradise. Yeah, that was the first one. That was a funny one actually, because when I first went there, I did a test with Mum. My mum came up with me because she was with me most of the time, and then I ended up going out in today's world, you go out and you walk the track and you do simulators and all that sort of stuff. I had a chat to someone on the side who knew the circuit, and they said, oh yeah, just go down here, and this one's quite fast, and then you got long left, and that's pretty quick as well, and then you got a tight one, there's all this sort of stuff. Oh yeah, okay. So off I went, and by the time I got to that fast left he mentioned, it wasn't as fast as I thought it was. So I've gone in and I'm gone straight off the track, and I've got into a ditch, and I'm stuck in a ditch. And of course there's no one around. There's not like today. I mean, there was no marshals or anything. And I get out of the car and I'm trying to get this bloody Formula Ford out of this ditch. And so I come back into the pits eventually, and my mum's looking at me like this with grass all over the car and stuff. She goes, "Sonny, where have you been?"
Some great memories there, mate. Fifth, I think, in the Driver to Europe series that year. You raced a Van Diemen and some, as you say, some classic tracks, some of them now gone, Amaru Park, Oran Park and so on. Formula 2 brought experience with more powerful motors and aerodynamics and things like that. You would win the Australian Drivers' Championship with a mega drive from 38th on the grid at the Formula 1 Grand Prix in Adelaide, the support event there. What are your recollections of that? And on the backstory, people can probably hear it in my voice. You had some great words of, let's call it, motivation from Dad. Is that a way to describe it? You were pretty fired up, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those situations which was very uncomfortable to begin with. Something triggered something with a conversation. You go out and you perform at a level you've never experienced before. So the problem I had was we weren't speaking. Okay. And a lot of that came down to the fact that he was not very happy, as well as my mum, that my girlfriend was pregnant, and I had all this talent and this sort of potential career, that he really was, getting himself into at this point, because I'd done quite well up to that. And he for him, in the old school, it was like, no women, no children, it's a selfish sport and you've got to blah, blah, blah. So we weren't talking. So I'm standing there in front of him and Mum, and I'd done qualifying, and I was qualified 38th because we did 2 qualifying sessions, and the car stopped each time, so I never did a time. So I had to start at the back. And then, obviously you think about the race and you think about how you're going to go out there and perform, and you just feel this energy inside you. And then when I was talking to Dad and Mum, and, he had a Formula One pass, and I said, oh, you better get me one of those one day when I'm in Formula One. I didn't know what else to say, just trying to bridge the gap, and he just said, well, the days of you ever getting to Formula One are finished.
Simple as that.
And there was a little silence, and I felt this anger come up inside me, and I just told him to F off. I mean, I just was so angry, I can't, just raging. So I ended up literally staying in that angered state all the way till I got in the car. And I was and all of a sudden, my whole mindset was different. The way I viewed the race was very different. The motivation I had was 10 times higher than what I had previously leading into that race. The point to prove something to somebody was intensified even more. And I'm sitting on the grid, and I'm saying to my mechanic, you go down there and tell those guys they better get out of my way because I'm coming through. Now, I would have not thought that other than, I'll go through them. But I was so angry that all, my world had changed completely. Boom, bang, bang. I was like, really aggressive and telling people what to do. And so when the green flag went, I just took off. I went from 38th to 17th on the first lap. I mean, every gap I found I got, bang, bang, bang. And nothing touched the car. And I won the race, in 15 laps. Standing on the podium, Jack was there, and, all of a sudden he was my mate again, It's like, and it was an amazing experience. It didn't feel great before, but afterwards I kind of felt like I'd gone to a different dimension in life and in driving, that it's like, wow, that was my gift, because I took a lot of what I learned there into my career. But, sometimes you need something like that to take you to a place that then takes you forward. You see it as a negative to begin with, but life has this way of sorting things out. And for me, it was an absolute blessing. So yeah, it was an amazing experience, and that catapulted me to Europe, because Dad was there. Ken Tyrrell was watching. Jack actually got Jackie Stewart and Ken Tyrrell and said, "Oi, come and have a look at my boy," because he's looking at me catching everybody. And of course, when I got up on the podium, Ken was there, and he said, Australia's got to get behind this boy, and blah blah blah. And so that really helped my momentum to be able to get a drive in England.
Let's talk a bit more about that, because there was in the CV a bit of racing in New Zealand, South America, but that whole Europe chapter was what beckoned. Formula 3 in the UK, I think 89 was a big year for the class. 40 car grids, names like Mika Hakkinen, Rickard Rydell. But there was you and another guy who would go on to star in the sports car racing aspect of your career, and Alan McNish. The pair of you were the stars that year, weren't you?
Yeah, we were the ones that were really duking it out for the championship. And it was a fantastic year. When I look back, it was amazing. For me, it was very successful because I obviously won the championship, and the battle between Alan and I, and West Surrey Racing and Bowman Racing, and I was with Bowman and Alan was with West Surrey, and West Surrey had won all those championships, before, so they were the gun team. Senna drove for them, and Gugelman, and lots of other really talented people. And so I was going there against Alan, who I raced against a bit in Vauxhall Lotus before as Mika Hakkinen, and we were all in Formula 3 together in 89, and we had great battles. And halfway through the year, I literally, with I think first 4 races, I had a 31-point lead in the championship. And we didn't have many points then. They're not like they have now, and 20 odd points for a win. It was only like 9 points. So I had a massive lead. I kind of felt like the team backed off. It's like, this is done and dusted, and then Mugen, who were new to Formula 3 at that point, with Alan, they started to get more competitive and starting to beat us, and something was going awry. And we got halfway through the year, and little did I know, but my team put in a protest to West Surrey about the Mugen engine. And all of a sudden they've protested us on the Volkswagen engine that I had, the Spiess Volkswagen. And all of a sudden I was leading the championship with Alan, a joint points leader, and all of a sudden we've lost. I lost 24 points because we got penalties because of this situation. Alan's team, where Surrey appealed, mine didn't, so he kept his points till the tribunal. So he was leading the championship, and I dropped to 6. So I was 24 points behind him in the championship. And so we got to a place called Snetterton in the UK, and we got turned up for the race. So it was the first race after all our points had been taken away. And I'm sitting there working with my engineer, and he was so fed up with the politics. It was like he'd just given up. And I ended up like talking about the car, and he just said, well, it doesn't matter anymore, does it? And I'm like, hang on, I've got to improve the car. So that was another kind of one of those moments in time that was a damn good gift for me, because I took charge of the day, where I was always relying on the engineer, and we'd work together. This time it was like, okay, we're not going to get anywhere like this. I'm going to have to take over the whole operation in terms of the engineering, what the car's going to do, what I need.
That side of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, right, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want that. And I just went quicker and quicker and quicker. And I got back then, I got pole position by, I'm going to say 6/10. Something like that, around Snetterton, which like is a lifetime. Yeah. And because I had such a gap, I can't remember the rules, but they ended up staggering the grid because I was so far ahead. I don't know, I can't remember why, but we ended up changing the way the grid was formed because I was so far in front. It showed that I actually had the capability of doing that. And driving that side of it, and I knew enough about the car to by then, was about halfway through the year, to know exactly what I wanted. And in the race, I just switched off on the start. I was in bloody dreamland, and just sitting there. My heart wasn't really racing. It all lights went out, and I just stalled. And everyone went past me, and I'm thinking of the championship. I'm trying to start I've got my hand in the air. Someone's going to hit me. It's like, and then I look in the mirror, and there's McNish. He'd stalled as well behind me.
Awesome. What did it mean to you, given the nerve-wracking aspect of that, to ultimately win that British F3 title? I mean, some great names have won it. It is clearly a stepping stone for most that have gone on to Formula One. What did that mean?
Well, at the time, Alan was declared the champion till the court hearing, which was actually at the beginning of the following year. Up at that point, we were heading into the Macau Grand Prix, which that was the Formula 3 World Cup. So, England had a championship, France had a championship, Germany had a championship, Italy had a championship. And, you had Schumacher, you had Zanardi, you had obviously our guys. Then you had some of the F1 stars come down, Eddie Irvine,
epic lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Julian Bailey. And so the motivation, again, another, I learned a lot about motivation up until that point. And it was another trigger. It was literally like, that championship's mine. I felt so angry. There was a journalist called Mark Skewis, and he was writing for Motoring News, and he sent through a fax of a story he was writing about Formula 3, and I started reading it, and I can't tell you how angry I got. Alan McNish, the deserved winner. He dominated the championship, all this sort of stuff. And I'm reading this, and Lisa's watching me, and I'm like, this, and I just curled it in a ball and I chucked it against the wall, and I'm like this and like that. And next thing, the phone rang. It's Mark. He was just taking the piss out of me.
It worked. He wound you up.
Yeah, he was. But that was like, going to, that's what it meant to me, So going to Macau, it was like, I've got to win this. I've just, if I don't win that championship in the courts, I've got to win this one. And I ended up winning it, So to beat all those guys at that point, and then obviously being then declared the champion later on that, or earlier on the next year, just, you got a super license. You could go and do Formula One. So it meant a huge amount to me, and it was you talk about being under the shadow of Jack and things like that. I think when I won the F3 championship, that was helped me to become being comfortable with who I am and the success that I got until that point.
Just share with people that may not know. I mean, Macau in F3 terms is a signature race. It's still a signature race meeting globally now. But what is it like to pilot one of those cars successfully at speed around there? Because it is just brutally unforgiving.
Macau. Yeah, it's one of the great street circuits of the world. It really is. And always at Macau there are accidents, always. And we took off on the start, and I think I qualified 6th or 8th or something like that. Wasn't a great qualifying. Hadn't been there before, so some of the guys up front had been there, some hadn't. Just didn't quite get it together in qualifying, but we knew we had a good race car. And took off down the straight, got a reasonable start. So I was about 4th, I think, going into the first big tight corner at the end at the Lisboa. And everyone's on the right for a right-hand corner, and this is where... I guess another lesson. Sometimes you get a sense about something, and you gotta go with it. And then what I did is I got a sense that there was gonna something happen. This just doesn't feel right. This is going to be a disaster. So I pull over to the left where you should be to take a right hand corner. I'm the only one kind of there amongst us, and of course everyone's piled in. There was a big accident, and I ended up getting caught in the accident, but my car was not damaged. So it was just a pile up, no one could move. So by the time they pulled everyone apart, there were some big guns got damaged. McNish's car was up on top of somebody, and all this sort of stuff. So that intuitive kind of just doesn't feel right helped me kind of win that race, because some of the McNish, he didn't even start. So one of my main competitors gone. You know what I mean? So Michael Schumacher and I ended up sort of duking it out for the first race. He was first, I was second, and then in the second race, I again kind of I was probably a bit tentative in the first corner, but it was fine. And I ended up saying to the team before, I said, look, just drop the rear wing. I just want as fast as I can be on that straight. I'll just deal with the corners myself. Don't worry about it, And I was like a rocket down the straights and got into the lead, and off I went and kind of won it. But certainly I think for even today, winning Macau is such a big deal. But back then it just felt enormous. Yeah.
You're very much, you can tell that listeners will be able to pick this up in the conversation. You've talked about the motivational aspect, but you're very in tune with the mental side of the racing game, aren't you? And when did that become a thing for you, really? And you clearly you took charge before in the Formula 3 example you gave in an engineering sense, but clearly you grasped the fact that the mental game is vitally important, didn't you?
Yeah, I can always remember my dad. He didn't give a lot of advice. He didn't really say a huge amount, because it was really like, well, get on with it, learn yourself, which was a great way of doing it. And he would just put his finger to his head and go, David, it's all up here, mate. It's all in the head. He couldn't articulate it, but he was damn right. And of course, I've expressed some of those moments for me, sort of having experienced what it's like to take yourself to a whole different level mentally, and what are the key mechanisms that help you get there, the drivers that do get you there. So as my career went on, I started to I started to research it more and read books, and whether it was books on science or books on spiritual stuff, I was a whole mixed bag of
a thirst for information.
I was a thirst for information because I had experienced stuff, and it was not always easy to carry that into every race, and I started to understand, for me, was how important to find something, lots of things that were motivating, not just to win, but what out of the added stuff that would just take me to that kind of next level. And it was probably a 15-year journey towards the end of my career where I really not just started to think about myself, but it was also about the team and my teammates, how the energy of that team is operating. You get a sense of the energy in a room. Everyone has thoughts, feelings, emotions. They all play a role in what's going to be created next. So I started to look much more deeper into the way people thought, what people were saying to me, how they were saying it to me, how the engineers were talking, how my teammate was talking. Is he confident? Is he not confident? If he wasn't confident, how do I help him get confident? Because if he's not confident, his world's going to be such, he's going to take the direction of the car the wrong way, because he'll interpret the world differently to me. And I had one of those experiences where I was in Formula 3 Class B before I went into the main game, and I was testing at Alton Park, and I was in a Rolt, and my teammate was in a Rolt, and he had a slightly different car to me. Like the rear end was the gearbox was lower, and theoretically it was a better car. But I was like a second quicker than him, and the mechanic on his car came up and said, "Look, can you just please jump in the car? Just please." He's complaining about this, he's complaining about that, and we just don't know. So I jumped in the car and I went a tenth quicker in his car than I did in my car. And his interpretation of the world and my interpretation of the world, my confidence and everything was so different to his. But he was complaining about stuff that I wasn't. So that was kind of like, well, when you're in that mindset, you're going to interpret the world differently. You're going to then come up with ideas around that world that take you down the wrong path. So when you get yourself into a much clearer, more focused, more confident state of mind, your interpretation of the way you think is different. So that changes your outcomes. So then it was, okay, my outcome is I've got to win. So who have I got to be? Who am I being now? What's my mood? That was the biggest thing for me. What mood am I in when I go into a race? That was for me the key. And what's the mood of the team? What's the mood of my teammate? You just have to watch, you have to feel, all that sort of thing. And I worked much more with the team than I did myself towards the end of the career, because I knew that I was okay. And I would work on myself always, and then work with the team and just get that level up, that confidence up, that mindset that becomes champions, you know what I mean?
So you get your break in Formula One at around 1990, but I think did you test it in late 89? When was your first test? Where was it? What was your first experience like in a Formula One car? Share that with us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was kind of weird because I did obviously run the F3 stuff, and then a team called Middlebridge contacted me, and I went off and had a chat to them, and then Eddie Jordan offered me a test, and I tested at Silverstone.
Did it blow your mind? Was it everything you thought, or was it just...
This was Formula 3000, yeah. So this was Formula 3000s, because obviously that was the next step. Formula 1, I didn't even think about Formula 1. I was like, well, okay, done that, so what's next? F3000, what's the opportunities there? I didn't have any money, I had to find something. And then Eddie Jordan gave me a test. Complete disaster, was half dry, half wet, went out there on slicks, it was cold, spun. It's half spun, so I'm going sideways down the track, and I hit a curb, and it bumped up and it bumped down. It wasn't much of an accident. Got going, I came in the pits, but it punctured a hole in the tub. End of test, done. So that wasn't clever. And then Middlebridge, I did a test in an old Lola, and that went really well. And so next thing you know, I'm signed up to do Formula 3000, and Damon Hill was going to be my teammate. And we had brand new Lolas coming, and it was just, you just knew this was going to be a good year. The car was fast, the engines were good, team were good. Me and Damon together, who I'd raced in Formula 3, and I didn't know at that point how good he was going to become, because he didn't show it in Formula 3. He kind of struggled a bit there. He suited the much bigger cars than he did the smaller ones. And I was really looking forward to it. And the Formula 1, Middlebridge bought the Brabham Formula 1 team. So they were heading off to Phoenix, the week of Phoenix. I think it was like the Monday of Phoenix. The phone rings. David, how would you like to come over and race in Formula 1 at Phoenix for the first round of the championship? What? Where the hell has this come from? And I just thought about it for a moment. So I thought, hang on a minute, I'm not fit enough. I know I'm not fit enough to drive those cars. I don't know the track. I don't know the car. I just didn't feel confident that I could do it justice. So I refused. I said, I just don't think I'm going to do it justice right now. So I'm not going to do it. Which kind of like, someone's just knocked back a Formula 1 drive. What the hell is going on here? And so that was it. Didn't think much of it. And we were getting ready to test the brand new cars. They'd already done two races of Formula 1 at that point. And I get called into the office and they said, right, we're closing the Formula 3000 team down to focus on Formula 1. Really? Oh, Christ. And then you're starting to think, right, well, this is pretty late in the season. How am I going to find something now? Then they said, we want you to do Formula 1. Wow. So I either go and find a job or go and be a Formula 1 driver. I think I'll be a Formula 1 driver. You know what I mean?
Didn't take much arm twisting.
No, exactly, yeah. So obviously then it was a case of going to the team and doing a seat fit. I sat in a BT 58, which was a pretty good little car. Yeah. They'd been on podiums that year in Monaco and other races. And it was just a tidy little package. Got in the car at Silverstone, sitting there, the engine's revving, got the Brabham emblem on the steering wheel, and it was just such a moment.
Surreal.
Yeah, it was such a moment. My first time in a Formula 1 car is a Brabham. I mean, it was just unreal. And then I think I probably did 10 to 15 laps, and getting feel for it, and the thing's like, oh, this feels fast, but I was getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and but then by the time I got to sort of lap 15, my neck was falling off because the G-forces were so much higher than what I was used to, and I hadn't trained my neck enough, so I did that test, and it was off to find a coach, a gym instructor, and said, mate, you got to get me fit because this thing's like killing me, and I was fit doing F3, and F3000 wasn't too much of a problem, but F1 was another jump, but I did it. They were happy with the test. I was happy with it. Can
you remember the power plant and the sort of horsepower that was it a 3.5 litre Judd V8? What was the engine that was in it at the time?
It was a Judd V10. It was quite peaky. Yep. Didn't have a lot of torque, which was an issue. But that whole year was a bit of a disaster, to be fair, because I didn't realise that how much in trouble Brabham were when I got there. 59 wasn't the 58, was it? No. I mean, God, we tested at Jerez with the 58 and the 59. The 59 was 2 seconds lap slower. So it was a dog, basically. Sergio Rinlin, who's a good mate of mine, designed it. I mean, I always take the piss out of him every time I say him. And he always says, every time he talks to people and I'm there, I made him the worst Formula 1 car ever, And, there was no money, the wind tunnel, we had problems with the wind tunnel, the gearbox, which was the first transverse gearbox that the team had done, didn't come till halfway through the year. So we had last year's rear end on with a new front end, and all the geometry was wrong. And it was just wrong, really wrong. I mean, you just don't go racing like that. And of course, I was pretty naive going into Formula 1 in many ways. I wasn't worldly enough in some sense because everything was not easy, but I had everything around me and everything was working. Went into a quite political situation, no money, a lot of stress. You're in the world's eyes now. I'm Australia's next Formula 1 driver, and from Alan Jones. So there's a bit of weight of expectation there. I'm in a Brabham. And it was a tough year. Didn't qualify for half the races. You know, it was you're either in or you're out because we had 30 cars going for 26 slots. The first time I tried to qualify, I missed the first session and I missed the second session. Every time I went out, the car stopped because it was a brand new car and never turned a wheel. And I missed out by 0.3 in qualifying. You know, and my first Formula One race was Monaco, which was the next one. So I managed to qualify at Monaco, which was a huge feat back then. I think Michele Alboreto didn't even qualify. He was behind me in the footwork. So it was really tough at the back, really, really tough. And as the season went on, I didn't get new bits. I was getting Stefano Modna's bits from what he wore out because there was no money, you know, and he was the number one, I was the number two, which is fine. I get that. But yeah, I walked out of there scarred massively, you know, and it took a bit out of me.
Did the challenge, was that compounded by the fact that, you know, nowadays bringing money to a race team is such a significant thing, and you talked about the fact that there wasn't much money there before. Did you have to bring or garner funding to help what you were doing? Was that an issue too? What about the political aspects? What were the eye-opening parts of that? Because it is, I mean, it's been written about, hasn't it? They talk about it being the piranha club, and it's a really tough environment, Formula One, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've never brought money to a team. Never had that kind of funding or anything like that. So I had to find my way through and find drives where I could. But certainly in Formula One, you know, I kind of felt like when I got there, half the team wanted me, half the team didn't. Half the team didn't because they were Brabham, they were fairly successful, they'd done pretty good the year before. Also, I'm standing on the podium at Monaco is a pretty good deal, you know what I mean? And so they felt they wanted a more experienced driver than someone like myself. And I was the second youngest driver on the grid at 24. So for them, I get it, you know. I didn't at the time, but I get it now why, you know, there would have been people there. So, well, you know, it's great, but, you know, we need someone with experience. And I didn't have it. And then at the end, I think I was made a bit of a scapegoat in some way. I didn't keep the drive, and then I had to go off and find something else. So I ended up going back to Formula 3000 because there was an opportunity to have a free drive there. And also I had F1 experience, and they were quite keen for me to be in the team. So I led the team. I had a Mexican teammate who brought the money. And then I ended up doing the XJR 15 sort of the little series they had with Monaco, Silverstone and Spa against all these good drivers, and Derek Warwick was there and stuff, and he was a Works Jaguar driver at the time. And we went to Monaco, and Derek was first, I was second, and I was you know, standing in the pits after the race, feeling pretty chuffed with myself. You know, I think about going down the inside of one of those corners. It was turn one, I think. I should have done it. If I had it, I would have won. But it's funny how these things stick in your mind. It's like, that was one that was missed. That was my fault. But, you know, I must have impressed Tom Walkinshaw, because then he said, how would you like to test the XJR 14, which was the silk cut Jaguar in the 1991 World Championship. I didn't know at the time they were looking for a replacement for Martin Brundle, because he was dovetailing between F1 and it's because he'd gone back to Brabham. And then it was like, okay, well, I'll go and do a test. So I rang up to say, well, what about this test? You know, I'm kind of keen to get in to see what this looks like. And then they said, well, there's no point you testing if you don't race for us. Are you offering me a drive? Yeah. And they said, well, yeah. So it's like, right, okay, because I have had commitments with my Formula 3000 team. I said, well, yeah, I'd love to, but I've got to talk to my team first just to tell them, yeah, clear it, you know. So I went to the team, and they didn't have any money, so it was like, we can't keep you, you know. So I was like, yeah, go for it, you know, there's a great opportunity for you. So then I ended up doing the deal for Jaguar and becoming a Works Jaguar driver alongside Derek Warwick and Teo Fabi. So I ended up driving one and finishing in the other, because he only had three. Tom would only pay for 3 drivers, not 4. So my first race at the Nürburgring, I finished first and second.
Just explain that.
Well, because it was a 3-hour race, and I would start with one car. So I started in Derek Warwick's car, took off we went, and I actually had Keke Rosberg in front of me in a Peugeot. Michael Schumacher was there in the Mercedes with Carl Van Langer and all those guys, who I raced in F3 as well, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yeah.
And we qualified up front. Obviously, the two main drivers did the qualifying, and so this is my first race as a Jaguar Works driver. And I'm following Keke, and he's spewing out oil, and this oil was just coming up all over my screen. So I'm running third, and I'm thinking, well, I got a pit soon. And next thing, he spins off, and I look up ahead, and I can't see Teo. Teo's gone, but he wasn't gone like up the road. He'd spun off on the oil as well, and he was behind me. Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm in the lead. I can't see where I'm going. Do I come in? Do I stay out? And it was all very confusing. So I decided I could just see enough. I couldn't see exactly like straight in front of me because of the oil. In fact, I think Schumacher behind me came in to clean his screen, and I was one in front of him.
So was there a little gap in the windshield or something? How did you see?
Well, I can remember going down the main straight on the pit straight, and I'm looking to the left to see the markers because I couldn't quite see on that side. Where, it was just like that the whole time. And I led up until the last lap of my stint, and someone got past me, and then we came in. So I did my job, because if I'd come in and got the screen, I would have been behind. And now Teo was catching me at a hell of a rate because I couldn't see where I was going. If I could have seen, I would have just disappeared. That thing was so fast. And then I get out. I'm waiting for an hour for Derek to do for Teo to do his double stint. Derek's now gone in to finish the race with a double stint. So I have a rest for an hour. I jump in Teo's car and off I go. And it was a very emotional race for Derek, because it was the first race that he had done after his brother got killed, and we're all quite close. And that was again that trying to pick the teammate up, trying to get them motivated and focused, and so forth. So that was another kind of new experience for me to be in, and so the cars finished first and second on the road. So it was nice for Derek to win. Absolutely. So by that time we were kind of 1-2, and it was like, no, keep that as the thing. So Derek won. I think they wanted to do it for Derek as well. And so it was time to go up onto the podium, and it's like, well, I'm not standing on the number 2 step. I'm going to stand on the number 1. So, but I finished first and second in the same race. Yeah,
I love it. They are an iconic car in sports car history. Tell us a bit about what they were like to drive, and a bit of if you can remember, some of the data on the engine and the package generally. What was it like?
The car would have qualified in the top 10 of a Formula One race.
Mega.
That's how fast the car was. It in pure, like, say, a full downforce spec was like 10,000 pounds of downforce. No car has that today. You know what I mean? It was phenomenal. It had an aerodynamic issue on the front. It just understeered too much. I don't think I ever had the car snap on me on the rear. The rear was just absolutely locked to the ground, which gave you so much confidence going in the corner. But all the tweaking, all the setup was around trying to get more front. And every time we got closer and closer to the ground with the ride height, you start to get the front to porpoise, so jump up and down. And it would jump up and down, it was quicker in the corner that way, but on the straight, the thing was just bouncing, just up and down like a porpoise. And so much so that if I was driving with my visor up and I wanted it up, I had to put tape on the visor to stop it from falling down because of the bouncing. The bouncing. Yeah. And when I first drove the car, it was in a small track in the middle of France. I was just blown away by the performance. The Ford 3.5 litre, it was the HB that the Benetton team were using that year with whoever was there. Was who was it? PK? I think it was PK and stuff like that. Oh, and Schumacher, because Schumacher shot across too. Yeah, from Jordan. Right. Yeah, and of course I was with the Judd in Formula One, and then I jumped in this with the Cosworth. And it was like, wow, okay, now I know this. Yeah, now I knew what I was missing the year before, big time. So the package, it was Ross Brawn's last car that he ever designed, and the tunnels on it were massive. The ground effect tunnels were massive. But we talk about how impressive that car was. But when the new Peugeot came out. By the time we got to the end of the season, that Peugeot was a rocket. That thing just drove away from us. Michelin tyres had just taken a massive leap forward. The Peugeot package. So the Peugeot ended up obviously towards that, to the winning Le Mans 2002 and 2003. My brother Jeff drove it in 2003, and that was even quicker, obviously, than what we were driving. I mean, that must have been unbelievable. I can't imagine what those things were like. But just to be a Jaguar Works driver, working with a professional team that had budget, we went testing. All of a sudden, I saw what a proper team kind of really looked like, because Brabham was in disarray. It had no money, and it was, we had no testing, and bits were falling off and all that sort of stuff. So all of a sudden, I went from the worst to one of the best scenarios. And that team in F1 would have done really well. They were just at that kind of level. And obviously Ross proved that. And it was just a great experience. And having done F1 and that helped me, I think, just pick up lots of drives along the way, because I had that experience with those people and those type of cars. And then, like I said, I've never had money to pay for a drive. If I had $500,000 in 91, I could have got the Jordan drive.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I couldn't find any money. So
the word you used before was a bit scarred from that first experience. So clearly doing this sort of stuff gives you a bit more confidence again. How did the door open to get back in Formula One? What transpired there?
Well, I did a couple of seasons of Formula One, sports cars. I went to Toyota the following year, and then 93 was a bit of a barren year. It was not a lot of drives out there. It was a good time to get married. So we got married. And I did a few races. And, of course, then I met up with Nick Worth, who was trying to put a Formula One team together. And obviously I'd had all that experience in Formula One and sports cars. I was the perfect fit for them. And it was my only way really to get back, because I kind of felt like it was a bit unfinished business in Formula One, because in terms of my career, I had stepped up a lot from when I first got to Formula One, having been with Jaguar and Toyota, and, I was just a better driver. So I felt like I could, that was my time to be in Formula One in a sense. But it was a difficult year. Get money, big problem. Going from race to race, hand to mouth, and not having the money to develop. Nick was 28, I was 28. He was the designer, the team owner, everything. Credible brain, but inexperienced in that field.
You're playing in the biggest possible field in motorsport.
Absolutely. It was a bit like being a duck in a lion's den. You know what I mean? It's just. So I ended up obviously doing the year, but it was a tough one. We lost Roland, which wasn't great. Difficult for the team to get through, but we did, and got to the end of the year, and that was it really. I mean, Formula One was done for me. I needed I'd tasted sports cars and life outside of that, which I quite enjoyed. Went to do British touring cars with BMW, because Nick was very close to Paul Roche, and he said, look, I'll talk to Paul, see what I can do with BMW, and he did. Went and met up with Paul Roche, and Paul, right, let's just do a deal for you to race in England.
BTCC.
And British touring cars,
If you don't mind, can we just finish the Simtech chapter there, 94? I mean, you talked on the passing of Roland Ratzenberger, and I mean, it came on the same weekend that Ayrton Senna passed in Italy. I mean, it still to this day sends chills up the spine of people that love their Formula One. How did you deal with that? And you are to be credited, because for the rest of the year, you showed incredible leadership to help the team come out of that and to keep going despite all the challenges you detailed there before.
Yeah, I mean, when I think back, I think all those experiences I had previous to that, in terms of the mindset and everything, I understood that a lot more. So when Roland died and Ayrton died, that whole weekend was just black. It was heavy. But, I chose to race the next day after Roland died, and he had a problem with the front wing. It collapsed, and so, I'm going into the race and, is this thing going to happen to me as well? So it was tough. I can remember going down the straight towards where Roland's going, and the adrenaline is pumping in a different way that it would normally do.
Out of fear?
Oh, yeah, all sorts of things going through your mind, where I'll be flat out, but my actually leg was bouncing with adrenaline. I had no control over my leg. I could keep it flat on the straights, but my leg was just moving. It was just like pumping with adrenaline. It was just bouncing, and I had, it was just the weirdest sensation. And I was lucky myself that race, because I had an issue in there, and went off the racetrack, and luckily I didn't hit anything other than a bunch of tires. My steering column broke, so it was like, it could have been horrendous. So difficult weekend to get out of there with confidence. Again, it just your whole demeanor about the team and yourself is just at such a low, and you've got to pick yourself up. And the only reason I raced was for the team, because we did warm up, and I said I'll make a decision after warm up, and I did warm up. And we actually did quite well in warm up. Normally we were down the back for obvious reasons, but I don't know if they put less fuel in the car to make me feel good. I don't know, but we were in the top 20, and I think we were 15th, 16th, which was really, we'd never been that high. Came into the pit, and I just noticed this black, dark cloud that was over the team. It just shifted slightly. There was a bit of hope. I just sensed hope, a little bit of hope in the team. And I thought, I got to create more hope. I got to do that for the team. So I didn't race for me. I just raced for the team, and off I went to just keep things going as Roland would have wanted to. As long as it's safe, just. You're a racer. Get out there and race. That's what you do. It was unusual. It is unusual for a team to race after that. They would normally pull out, but it's a choice. And my choice was. They said it's up to you. What do you want to do? So you've got sponsors. You've got this and that and that. And it's like, I didn't really think about that too much. It was about the team, about the people. So that's what I did, and we managed to get through to the end of the season, but I couldn't continue. I couldn't bring the funding or anything that other people could, and that was it.
The diffuser is at the rear of the car, providing downforce by using the airflow under the car's floor. That diffuser creates nearly 50% of the car's total downforce.
You'd had a taste, as you say, of sports cars, and that in your career, mate, we'll get to a few of them, you've driven some amazing things. Just quickly, the BTCC chapter, that was, the British Touring Car Championship, people still in the mid-90s and the 1990s full stop remember it very fondly. It was ultra competitive, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, there were so many manufacturers involved, and the level that they were at was high. And for me, going into it from Formula One to a 2-litre touring car was a major shock of how slow these things were.
Just diametrically opposed. They're different, aren't they?
Yeah, they didn't stop, they didn't turn. Going testing, just overshooting the corner all the time. They just couldn't do it. And I went to BMW just as they were changing teams. So Schnitzer were always doing British touring cars. Schnitzer went to Germany. The German team, Warthofer, with Johnny Cicotto, who was really at that time their number one driver, and he'd won the German championship the year before. They wanted them to go to England. And I was going to be Johnny's teammate. So I had a great teacher in that sense, great guy and fantastic driver, and very much the heartbeat of BMW as far as the drivers are concerned. But it wasn't a particularly competitive year. It was their worst year that ever had in British touring cars. So they had their works team, their works driver, and me. I think Johnny finished something like 16th in the championship, and I was 17th. You know, he was only 1 point ahead of me,
which was unheard of, because I mean, Steve Soper, Jochen Winkelhock, they had dominated, hadn't they?
Totally, yeah. I mean, it was very uncharacteristic of BMW, and of course, I hit them right at that point. And to get your head round those cars, it was difficult. The slower you went, the faster you went, basically, which was against my upbringing in a sense, because in Formula One you just got to go for it, and you got to really commit into the corner, and you feel that grip, and it helps you get around the corner. Every time I did that in the BMW, thing went slower, you know. So it's a great story of John Cleland, who won the championship in a Vauxhall there, went and did a test betting in the brakes, finished betting in the brakes, did a lap time, and then could never beat it after that. You know what I mean? It was just kind of a strange kind of way, and having so used to driving bigger cars, it took me a while to get my head around it. But I had some really good races. You know, we qualified not great, but in the racing was just so good. And with a rear wheel drive against a lot of the front wheel drives in the races, you know, we could have a bit of a go. I went to Knock Hill. We were there all week testing. Took my family up there with Sam, and he was 11 months old. And race morning, we get up, and we always had this routine, you know. So barricade where the kettle was, boil the kettle, warm up his milk for his milk, and all that sort of stuff. I jump in the shower. I'm getting ready for the race morning, and next thing I hear is screams, and I jump out of the shower to find out what's going on. I look, and Lisa's looking down the corridor, and there's Sam in a pool of boiling water with steam coming off his body. And it's like, you've got to be kidding. And like, he was screaming, Lisa's screaming, and you know, you're just thinking, what the hell is going on? So I picked him up and put him into the bath, just poured cold water in there. And luckily, like, normally when you're in England or Scotland, it dribbles out. Back then there was no pressure, but this thing had loads of pressure. It was filled up the bath really quickly, and it was cold water, and I'm holding him in the water, trying to assess what the hell has just happened and what damage is done to him. You know, he's screaming, Lisa's still screaming, and I said, well, you got to, you know, bring the bloody ambulance. You know, we got to. So she's gone out the door. She started screaming help. The doctor for BMW, Dr. Vincenzo Totta, was actually not far away from us. No, it was Johnny Cicotto. That's right. Johnny Cicotto was not that far, and his girlfriend at the time. So they've come in. I've got nothing on. I'm sitting there with my son in the water, and because I'm looking at him, I'm looking at his feet, and his skin is just peeling off his feet, just coming off in the water like this. And anyway, so the ambulance came, and off we went. And this is race morning, you know. We get to the hospital in Glasgow, so we had to go the other side of Scotland, and they went to the burns unit. Now that burns unit happened to be the best burns unit in the country. Wow. Which was good. You go in there and you just don't know what's going on. And so they've got him, and they wrapped him up and done all sorts of stuff, and he was like a mummy, you know. He was just wrapped up like a mummy. And then all of a sudden the doctors turn around and say, well, there's not much you can do. You may as well go back to the race. It's like, what? And then because your brain's all over the place, you don't know what to think. And it's like, okay. So we managed to make contact with BMW, and BMW then got hold of the series. The series sent a helicopter over to pick me up, and I missed the first race on the Sunday, so I actually joined for the second race.
Wow.
While Sam and Lisa were at the hospital. Yeah. Not really knowing if I should be there or not or whatever. Anyway, I got in the car, and it's always been something I've been able to do. If there's been this distraction in the past, like leading up to a race, I've been able to kind of focus on the race and I actually had my best result that year, which I finished 4th. And again, I had that same adrenaline pump with my leg where I'm flat on the straights and my leg is just literally doing this. I'm just shaking. And I'm trying to quieten my leg down and focus and you get into the race, and the car was fairly competitive that weekend, and I ended up finished 4th, but I missed the first race. Then I was back to the hospital and we were there for 2 weeks with him. Yeah,
amazing. One of the most successful sports car races ever. You look at your name and it's linked to Aston Martin, to Bentley, to all these very impressive names. What's been the secret to your longevity there? What was it? You just clearly enjoyed that endurance form of racing and getting the good team of people around you, and off you went, basically.
Yeah, I think obviously up until that point I'd had quite a lot of experience, obviously gone through Formula One, in and out of sports cars, and then obviously once I settled into sports cars for the long term, I was very happy in the environment. I loved the long races, the challenge of it, the challenge of getting the team around you and with your teammates, because you've got 2 teammates. You've got to work together in getting a setup and making sure the seat's comfortable. You really do work as a team more than you did in Formula One. It was all very much about you and all that sort of stuff. And then when you get in the sports cars, you can't think like that. And then I just thrived in it. And, I just always trying to critique and get better at anything that I was doing. I was consistent. I could turn on a quick lap if I needed to for qualifying, and I could be consistent in the race, and I was consistent every time I got in the car. So I had very few off days as such. I had them, not saying you never had them, but I had very few of them. So I was reliable, and of course, I was always very much into the development of the car, making the car work for you in the race, not you having to work it. Particularly at Le Mans or any 24-hour race. If you haven't got a fast race car that's comfortable to drive, you're toast basically. So for me as a driver, when I think back, I can think back being on the farm as a kid, not thinking about racing, but just picking up one of my dad's trophies. And I used to climb everything. So I used to climb up on the roof. My mum was doing the gardening, and I'd start doing a speech. Thank you, fans. Thank you. I got one of, I don't know what trophy I had, but it was probably one of Dad's, Grand Prix winning trophies or something. And I had it up in the air, and I'm, just being an idiot, So, to think from there to the career and racing for Bentley, racing for Jaguar, racing for Aston Martin at Le Mans, winning with Peugeot, winning with Aston Martin, standing on the podium at Le Mans, which is one of the most incredible feelings for any driver. Pretty cool, actually, very special.
I can remember walking with your late dad around the house on the Gold Coast and stopping at various bits of memorabilia and having wonderful chats with him about things that sparked his memory. And we looked at this photo, it was a painting actually, of a race that he'd done at Reims in France, and he recounted various things about it, and it really had stuck in his mind, Is there a race for you in sports car terms? Clearly Le Mans is a highlight. Is there a race and a car that is, that you have a soft spot for in your heart, the one that sort of stands out the most?
That's a good question. I've driven a lot of cars, a lot of really great cars, and each had a different character about them. When I think back, if somebody says to me, what car impressed you the most when you got in it? I guess it was the XJR14. Mm-hmm. In 91, that was impressive. But I've been in situations which I think I thrive on more than being in a works team. I did drive for works teams, which was great, but my enjoyment really came from driving with teams that weren't meant to win, but we won.
Okay.
That's what I loved, because that was the greater challenge. And Panos days, when we were beating Audi. I mean, there's no way a front engine Panos should be beating the works Audi team in sports cars. When we went to the Nürburgring 1000, we were racing against BMW, works teams, and an Audi, and we beat them in a front engine American monster on German soil. Could you imagine the conversations the next day in Germany? What is going on? What is this shitbox beating us for? You know, it's like
Great satisfaction.
oh, mate, yeah. And that's what it was. I mean, you know, I like I said, I loved being in the sort of underdog situation where the challenge is greater to win, and you really need to work your butt off to do that. And when I think back of some of those moments where driving the Zytek 675 car was like a P2 at Le Mans in qualifying, and this thing was probably one of the best little cars I've ever driven in terms of around a corner. Dead slow on the straight because it was a 675 car, but I actually, if I go back a bit and I think of Bentley, when I went to Bentley and raced at Bentley, I look back and I think didn't do a great job there.
Why?
Because I put myself under too much pressure. I'd been with Panos for a while and it was all starting to get a bit, you know, all starting to dive down a bit. I thought they got a lawyer to come in and bloody run the team, and it ended up being a complete disaster, you know. And then what happened was I got the Bentley deal, and I just put myself under too much pressure. I just wanted to impress them, obviously, and you know, I was getting caught in traffic and I was putting pressure on myself, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I learned a lot there in terms of when my mindset was focused on traffic, I got traffic.
Really?
Yeah. And when my mind was focused on clear laps, blah, 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 I got clear laps. So once the race kind of got into a rhythm, I just let go. And that was another thing, just let go, and just be the driver and just go with the flow. And, yeah, all of a sudden, my times were better and I was doing a better job and wasn't getting so much traffic. Okay, later the race you have a little bit less traffic, but I wasn't getting caught up like I was before and getting frustrated with. I just allowed too much frustration and stuff. So I went to the next year with this little 675 car and I had a completely different mindset. My preparation was different. That's when I really started to really whatever it is I wanted to achieve in the race coming up, I would just go through the events in my mind and I'd have clarity. I wouldn't put any negatives in. It was always very positive. I'd see myself go through this qualifying lap where I absolutely was perfection and no traffic, which is like rare in Le Mans to get a lap here that there's no one in front of you and you have to wait or something like that. So I got there and was ready for qualifying. The car was good. Did the first run on a set of soft race tyres, and we were P11, which was fine. And that was because we had qualifying tyres back then. So I put on a set of qualifying tyres and I went off, and it was time for my lap. Now, I had already pre-planned, this is going to be a clear lap. I come down the start-finish line, I see this car drive out of the pits in front of me going into turn one, and he just got right in my way. And I'm steaming, you know what I mean? What are you doing in my way, you know? And I'm shouting, and I'm right up next to him because he didn't look in his mirrors, didn't get out of the way. And my fists going up in the air at him like this, swearing at him. And I'm going down the Mulsanne straight because I couldn't go fast because we had a set of qualifying tyres. Luckily, I had fuel enough to do a few laps. And all of a sudden, I go, hang on a minute, mindset. What mindset are you in? No. You're pissed off, you're frustrated. Frustration's not going to give you a clear lap. So I let go. And then just got back to where I was before. And I went, you know what? I asked for a clear lap. That guy got in my way. That meant that my next lap is the lap that's clear, not this one. And I went off and I did that next lap. And I saw one car on the straight, went past him. I saw no one else.
Crazy.
And I went from P11 to P1 overall, ahead of all the P1 cars, ahead of the works Audis and everyone who'd been out there on qualifying tyres. And I was probably 20k slower on the straight, 15, 20k slower on the straights. So I took myself to I was able to control and balance the emotions and what was going through my mind. And then just having that, going back to that sense of, no, it's going to be fine, because I'd already pre-programmed it, put it in my mind, that's what's going to be. That was a gift, because, all of a sudden I was seeing it completely different. To being angry, it was like, no, I'm grateful, because you've got me in the way. That means my next lap's going to be clear. So I was in a really good state of mind. And that lap, I just watched myself. I was, when drivers or competitors talk about being outside the body and just kind of watching, that was one of those moments.
Wow.
So...
Did that happen often, or just in that moment?
I think I was able to replicate that more later in my career, but it was just getting to that point where I was able to let go, and that's half the issue these days, isn't it? I mean, just letting go, let life do its thing. Yeah, just let go. And once I let go, all of a sudden it was like I was just watching myself, and the car was so on the edge, and I went past the start-finish line, and it was funny because my wife was in the pit garage with everyone else, and they're watching P11, and all of a sudden my name disappears, and she said, there was just this no one knew where you'd went, because no one was looking at the top, and then someone yelled out, he's first, and the whole team has just erupted, because, obviously it wasn't expected that I would be P1 in the little 675 car, beating everybody that I should have been like 10th, you know what I mean? And so that, from the year before with Bentley to that, was just a quantum leap in again, just evolving mentally to get yourself into a place that you can create that kind of magic.
I just want to touch back on the Bentley aspect of your career for a second, because there have been times, I guess, where it's been a little bit of a tug of war in terms of national ownership, shall we say. So born in England, raised in Aussie, we're proud of you as an Aussie for what you've done, and no doubt they are in the UK too. But Bentley, the year you raced for them, put the Union Jack on your race suit, and eagle-eyed fans will remember it against your name on the car and stuff. Was that something that you were okay with? Were you miffed about it? How did you feel about all
that? Good question. It was quite important for Bentley that that car had British people in it, obviously. I would say I would have probably liked to had the Aussie one on there.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what I had up until then. But it's been an interesting one, because for me, are you British? Are you Australian? There's a conversation. If I'm here in Oz, they say, are you British? And if I'm in England, they say, you're Oz. You know what I mean? So I could never really sit anywhere. And in later years, I got rid of the flag and I just put a globe, an Earth. Planet Earth on there. Because when people said, well, where are you from? I said, I'm from Earth. Where are you from? Well, we're from the same place then, shut up. I mean, that whole Bentley experience was obviously very cool, driving for Bentley as a Bentley boy, not many of them in the world, and to finish on the podium in a 1-2, although I was gutted after that race. I was so distraught. I felt like having been with Panos, which, for 7 years and 6 years, you're never going to win a Le Mans race with that car. So when the Bentley thing came up, it was like, this is my chance. This is finally my chance to win Le Mans. I had a 50-50 chance of winning Le Mans, and I got the wrong side of the 50. And I drove across the line at the finish. I just finished second at Le Mans, and I felt nothing.
Really?
Felt nothing. Some of that was because I didn't feel I did myself justice or the team justice. Although my pace was, not many people probably noticed, but I knew, and the fact that, we were fast. I mean, if we hadn't had the issues, the other car had no issues all the way through the race and won. They did a brilliant job. That the whole team, and it was split. The Bentley team was split in two, the Brits and the Germans.
Okay.
So you had the Audi influence because we had their engines.
Yep.
The other car was run by top Audi people, and we had the Brits on our side. And in qualifying, I was against Tom Christensen, and up until the Porsche curves, I was going to say about 4 or 5 tenths quicker than him. And then I just hit traffic. I couldn't get a lap in, so that really peed me off. The engineer actually gave me the sheet afterwards. Hey, you should keep that. He was like, yeah, great. I didn't finish the lap, did I? I came in the pits because, just didn't get a chance. But we had a quick car. And we had a couple of battery changes. We lost 10 minutes, but we only lost by 2 laps or something. So we actually, if we'd had a straight fight, we would have won. We had a quicker car. We just had a better setup. But that doesn't always win Le Mans. You've got to have that perfect scenario, which was a great lesson for me later on to help me win Le Mans in the future, because it's not just about being the quickest. It's about that whole team environment and the way you operate, and watching that other side, how they did it. And there was a few things that I was uncomfortable with the way our side of the team was operating, and I knew, you kind of can predict your future a bit if you just kind of watch what's going on now. And yeah, we got the problems, and the other guys just the whole team over on that side, they worked well together as a team and as a unit. Tom was kind of leader. The other 2 drivers, Dindo and Guy Smith, they kind of fell in behind Tom and kind of steered it on. And it was just I learned a lot from it. A lot watching Tom, who's won Le Mans 9 times, whatever, 8 times, whatever it is. It was just really, really good to watch and learn.
And it served you. I mean, for the 3 class wins that you had, the outright victory in 09, that's got a rank. I've been to that race as a spectator in 2015, and it's just mighty Le Mans. It's just such a special thing, and if you can, you have to go and stay awake for the full 24 plus hours and soak it all up. I mean, to win it is a massive thing for a driver, isn't it?
It is. I mean, what was, I think for me, 2007 was the first time I won in a class there. Standing up on that podium, like I said, you see this sea of people in front of you with all these flags, all the different nationalities, and your car. Well, no, the overall winner car's on the bottom, but you've just won your class, and it's such an amazing feeling. And then we'd get off, and then the guys who'd win overall would stand up on the podium and go, geez, what does it feel like when you're up there winning overall? 2008, we again with Aston Martin, the GT1 class, and we win again. And at that point, I that's when I was really working harder with my team, in my team environment, to make sure that we had perfect races. So that means everyone had a perfect mind leading into that race and during that race. And whether it was my teammates, the mechanics, someone making the tea, it didn't matter who it was, they had to have that positive environment, that mindset that bought into what we're trying to achieve. And we had 2007, 2008, 2 absolute perfect races. Our cars had the least amount of time in the pits out of everybody. That's how you win Le Mans, And then 2009, unexpected, racing in America for Honda with the Acura program, and I'm at a test, financial markets crashing around us, obviously, and I'm at Sebring with Honda for our very first test. I get up in the morning of the test and I look at my emails, and there's an email from Peugeot. What the hell's that? I open it up and like to understand your contractual arrangements with Honda, and we'd like to know if you'd be interested in racing for us at Spa at Le Mans. What? It's like, right, okay.
Shall I call now?
Shall I call now? Yeah, hang on. They should be up. Yeah. So I ended up obviously doing the deal with Peugeot, and I'd say all the experience that I had, I needed to draw upon for that win. And I say that because the court case that I was involved in during this period, so sort of 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 in Germany for fighting for the Brabham name. 2009 was the kind of the peak stress for me. I'm driving to Le Mans for the week, and I'm on the phone to the lawyers screaming, just raging about what was going on and stuff like that. And so my mindset again was not one of those races where I look back and go, my mindset wasn't in the place that it should have been. I was too distracted with all the court stuff, and it was tiring, and I was doing a lot of racing. I was racing in America, and then I'd fly back to Europe and do a 30-hour test for a Peugeot, then back to another race, then I'd be back for another 30-hour test, and then I'd be back for another race. We did 3 30-hour tests from February till June with Peugeot, and I was racing in America and traveling and stuff like that, and the court case all going on in the background. My wife had started up a shop in 2005, and obviously with the financial meltdown, everything slowed down there, so the pressure of that, and it was just got to me. And so I really had to draw on everything that I'd learned about teamwork, about, all right, who's going to lead this team? Normally I would have led the team that was always around me, but I walked into Peugeot and realised straight away, that's not me, that's Alex Wirtz. He's the guy, I got to support him. So you've got to drop your ego and go, only way we're going to make this work is if I support him. Mark Genet, pretty easy kind of going guy, just happy to fit in and do what he has to do, and so we really had to work as a team, because you could see the other 2 cars, it was a nightmare. Political favoritism, drivers' egos out of control, all they were focusing on.
So before the races even started, they're in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. You like I said, you can start to predict the future when you start to see what goes on now, and I could see that they were going to run into problems just by the mindset of what was going on there. And my mindset wasn't that great as far as my own personal side of it, but in terms of making sure all the other elements are there,
You make good choices.
you make good choices. Exactly. So they were just making so many mistakes on the other side. It was just incredible, and the pressure to win for them. They spent a lot of money and they hadn't won, and a bit like the Bentley situation, they were a little bit like that as well, but worse so with Peugeot. I think just the pressure of winning was really too much for them in a sense, and it was all about who was the quickest, and the drivers had to be the quickest, and they wouldn't think about the bigger picture. It was always, well, I've done that lap time, that means if I've done that lap time, I'm going to please my paymasters, I'm going to continue with my job. And it's like, you're focusing on the wrong things, so we were actually car 3. We were there just to be there more than anything. Our engineer that we were given was a rally engineer, had never done Le Mans. He had chicken pox that week, so we never saw him leading up to the race. He came on the Friday with spots all over him. And so we, as a collective experienced group of drivers, did our own stuff to get to the race in the shape that we really wanted it. We'd noticed that that people were running over curbs in certain places and damaging the front splitter. You could see the sides of the front splitters were breaking. And we made a decision, we're not going to do that. Yes, it's slower.
Off the curbs, though.
Off the curbs, yeah. Just there's some curbs you can, but there was curbs that were damaging. And of course, the other cars were fast. And we ended up in a situation where, you normally at Le Mans you're racing and you've got a fuel light that comes on. So that either tells you got to come in or you've got another lap, depending on where you've got that light coming on with the amount of fuel you have. And in the race, we did the first couple of stints. I can remember my first stint going along, and the light comes on. Yep, right, come in. And then all of a sudden, we were told to come in a lap earlier. Well, hang on, if we're going in a lap earlier, we're going to be screwed further down the road. We're going to have to do another pit stop. Then it was a problem with the brakes, so you're going to have to make it, be easier on the brakes. And what was happening is we were leading, and then the other guys would catch us after changing front splitters because they were braking them. They'd get ahead of us, and then they'd brake them again, and they'd come back again. So it was like as if we were being held back to make sure Car 8 was going to win, which was the French team, the drivers. So there was all this politics going on, and you know, everyone in our side, the mechanics, the drivers, could see what was going on. It was just like pretty blatantly obvious to us. But you know, they were producing bad karma. You know what I mean? And they just kept tripping up, making the wrong decisions, tripping up. And we just made the right decisions, the right call. We had a perfect race. We never touched the car. We had the least amount of time in the pits. So that was 3 races in a row. I had perfect races. Yeah.
5.5 litre, mid-mounted. I think it only weighed 930 kilos, that car, the 908. What was it like to drive?
I think the most impressive thing was the engine, the diesel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Torquey?
Torquey. God dear. I drove out of the pits in my first test at Barcelona, and I just gunned it out of the pits, and I went, holy shit! The force it was giving you behind your back. By the time I got to the end of into the first corner for my outlap, the smile on my face, I thought, I can win Le Mans with this thing.
Wow.
That was straight away.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'd been, I mean, it was a bold thing for Peugeot to do because they just brought in a competitor. I was racing against them in America in the Honda program. Yeah. So like at Sebring, we were competitors. And actually when I went to have the meeting with the guys first time after I got the call, I'm sitting in the office, and the head engineer, Bruno, looks at me and he goes, tell us why you think you should be here.
Whoa, question.
Yeah, you know, it was literally like, you're a competitor. Why do you think you should be here? And I said, well, and I just kind of went back and I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you go and ask the teams and ask them how professional I am? Because I said, what goes on here stays here and what goes on stays there.
Yeah.
And I just looked him straight in the eye when I said it. And he just looked at me and he looked over to Serge and went, okay. That was it. Yeah. So
Got enough of that.
Yeah, so I got enough of that. And it worked out fine because, you know, the Peugeot was a different beast to what we had in America. We just didn't have the engine power. It was a new car and we were nowhere near as competitive as what the Peugeot was. But, you know, you're 2 manufacturers, so could have easily said, hey, they were doing this. And what was great was no one in my team, no one at Honda asked me a question. Never asked me a question. And likewise, you know what I mean? So it was the perfect environment. I kept my mouth shut. I did my job in America. No one asked me, what? So tell me what they did. There was none of that. Okay. So it was very professional, above board. Yeah.
Great success for you too, mate, to win one of the races on the planet. Just before we move into the fact that you gathered back the family name, you're building Brabham road cars are a reality, which I think is just awesome. I just want to touch on one car for a second because you mentioned it before, and I've spoken to Greg Murphy about this in the podcast, and that is the Panos. He raced it at the, I think, Race of 1,000 Years in Adelaide. Yeah, I mean, for people that aren't familiar with it, it's kind of this Batmobile-looking thing, 6-litre V8 power. I mean, it was a beast. I can vividly recall, I think, seeing you race it at Laguna Seca in maybe 1998 or something along those lines. It was so different to the other cars, but this infectious look and sound, it was amazing, wasn't it?
It was. Great little team. Very weird car to drive.
Why?
Well, I think because, I mean, you got used to it after a while. It felt normal. And then when I went back to what I call a normal car with the engine in the back, that felt weird, you know. So it's what you get used to. But when the program first started, I was actually going to be a McLaren driver leading up to that program.
What happened there?
I was involved. Weird. I was involved with the development of the long-tail McLaren in end of 96, beginning of 97. And it was like, well, okay, what's the program for this year? Because I'd won the All Japan GT Championship in a McLaren in 96. So I was still part of that program. And the BMW link continued from BTCC because of BMW engines. So that helped me to become a McLaren driver in that program, work with Gordon Murray and all that sort of stuff. So when it came to kind of negotiating what that deal would look like, I mean, typical at that time was like, well, we don't have any money, mate. We're not paying you. It's like, what? It's like, well, that ain't going to work, is it? And Dave Price, who's a mate of mine and, you know, ran successful race teams, kept bloody ringing me saying, I want you to come and have a look at this thing called the Panos. Because I remember reading Autosport magazine, and they had a little piece about this thing called the Panos. Front engine, blah, 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 American V8, blah, blah, and I remember reading it going, never see me in that thing. You know what I mean? Well, you did. And throughout that kind of period of negotiation, I got Dave Price saying, you know, come and have a look at the car. I went and had a look at the car. And actually, from a car point of view, okay, it was weird with the front, but all the suspension and everything were racing suspension compared to kind of more road stuff that I was used to. And I thought, well, okay, well, that's going to be better. I don't know about the engine. Pricey said, I'm just not sure about the engine yet, you know. It was a brand new program, so it's going to have lots of problems anyway. And then I was on holiday. Don't know where we were. I was with Lisa, and we were on holiday, and Pricey's going, look, you know, I need an answer. And I was getting nowhere with McLaren. So I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for the Panos thing, you know. So I rang up Pricey and said, I'm in, you know, great, boom, Pricey done, easy, poof. Then I rang up McLaren and I said, look, just to let you know, I've done a deal somewhere else, because, you know, if that's what you're offering, someone else has offered me a better deal, I'm out. But thank you very much for the journey. It was great. You know, really enjoyed it. See you later. Next thing I know, the next day, I get a message from Lisa's mum that a fax has come through from McLaren, all of a sudden offering me a deal with money. You know what I mean? It was just... And I shook my hands with Dave. Yeah. That was it. So I had to go back and say, too late, done my deal. You know, once I've agreed, I don't go back. So that's it. So that's how that kind of came about. Yeah. So yes, it was. And then it was, you know, 6 years of, last year, like I said, didn't go well. It all started to go downhill. But up until that point, like I said, you know, that car just should not have done as well as it did. And in 99, we turned up at Le Mans, and with the new regulations, and we cut the roof off and turned it into a proper open top prototype for P1. Went to pre-qualifying because you had to pre-qualify in those days at Le Mans, a few weeks before the main game, and I ended up P2 overall. I should have been P1 because the last chicane, I took the chicane like a good boy. Everyone else going straight, and I was thinking about my time being disallowed, because they said you'll disallow your time, but they didn't. Everyone was straight through, so I lost time there. But I was 2/10 off Martin Brundle in the Works Toyota. So I would have been quickest, which would have caused an absolute outrage out of everyone. And, you know, Mercedes, that was when Mark Webber was racing Mercedes, and he flipped up in the air and all that sort of stuff. And they were 2 seconds behind us. And, you know, everyone's going, what the hell's this thing just turned up like that and been that quick? You know, we had Yates engines, we had stonking qualifying engine. I think we were doing...
This is down Mulsanne, which is the fame. Yeah.
It's Mulsanne. I think we were doing something like about 340k, 345k down the straight. Yeah, because, you know, when we got to the race, we had to put the race engine in, and it was just dead slow and thirsty. So you're never going to win Le Mans like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, what a great little experience to go through with a little team and this odd looking car and stirring it right in there with the manufacturers. Yeah, love it.
It was a beast. I could sense in you before, when you touched on it, that the whole bid to get back the Brabham racing name, the Brabham name, was an object of obsession, understandably, but one that I guess really took a toll personally and professionally. How much so?
Well, obviously I thought about when I was 40, still in my prime of my career, but I'm thinking 10 years ahead, thinking, okay, what the hell am I going to do? We've got this name Brabham. I thought I did. Got this name Brabham. And I used to go down the pits and look at all the racing names, and I go down the high street and look at the brands, and I'm going, what are we missing? There's something not right here, because, the racing names should be brands as well. So how do I turn an iconic racing name into a brand? That was my kind of thinking. Something to create something for the family, a legacy moving forward. All those things were kind of going through my head. And then, cut a long story short, sat down with Dad. This is what I want to do. Yeah, great. What's your trademarks? Let's have a look. Put in an application. Got knocked back because someone in Germany came back and said, I own Brabham and I own Brabham Racing. So that was a bit of a shock. And it was like, well, okay, what do I do? So I spoke to Dad about it. He was pissed off as well. And he had one option, really, was to try and get the name back. So just as we kind of headed into battle, Dad said, look, I can't do this. What I didn't realise at the time, that he did say he was in a court case at that time in Australia, and it got really nasty. He had threats and all sorts of things, which I didn't know at the time. So at the time, I was a bit pissed off that he pulled out. So it's like, well, okay, if you're going to pull out, I want whatever trademarks you've got. If I win this case, it's mine, and I'm going to take it forward, And that's what I did. And it took 7 years to go through that process in the court in Koblenz in Germany. We won the first court case, then they appealed, and it went to the higher court, and it just kind of went on and on and on. And emotionally and financially, by the end of it, I was done, basically. My racing had stopped in terms of full time, so it was end of 2012. Christmas Day, 2012, email comes through, application for your trademarks have now gone through.
Fantastic.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got there, we went to the Autosport show, and we're going to do a press release to say that we've won the court case and the name's now back under the family control. And I'm sitting in the car park in my little red Golf, thinking I got 300 quid left in the bank.
Far out.
I got no job. But I got a name. What the hell do I do now? So it was tough, from like I said, emotionally, financially. Yes, it was great to get the name, but I just couldn't get that excited about it because, I had too many other problems to try and get through. And then, I picked up a few drives that year. That helped obviously keep things going, but it was just getting harder and harder to survive, and you got to try and create the next thing, and without the money and the investment to do that, so then I had to go and find the money and the investment and the partners, and up until that point I'd never been in the outside world. I've only been in this cocoon, being a racing driver. I stepped out into the real world, and it was like going back to Formula 1. It was like the lion's den. It's like, what the hell is all this about, and then because you don't know, I didn't understand so much about the outside world in business and finance, and like raising money or talk to all these conversations I'd never had before. So then you start beating yourself up and say, why don't you know? You should know that, then your confidence goes. So all that stuff I'd done in gaining more and more confidence and clarity in my mind and everything leading up to that point just all fell to a massive collapse. And I just had to try and pick myself up and just persevere and it wasn't easy. Wasn't easy for quite some time. We ended up having to move house and just cutting all our costs down and kind of trying to find a way forward. Find the right partners, and because you have so many meetings, they all sound great. Oh, great name! Yeah, we could do this, could do that. But then the only way I could navigate myself through it was I could maybe not have the experience, but what's common sense tell me? What's my gut tell me? That's the only way I could get through. And I was learning about all that stuff. The amount of times I used Google, what does that mean? What they say, what's that mean? You know what I mean? It was just a whole new world to me, yeah. So I had to rebuild everything, my confidence and my finances, and find the right partners. And so there was 4 years of wilderness, basically. Depressed, suppressed because you'd been a racing driver for a long time, and John Bowe talks about depression and things like that, and it
that was a reality for you.
Oh yeah, definitely, because you get lost. You're not in that world anymore. The adrenaline's not pumping. Your brain's not filled with all the things that it needs to be filled to keep all that in check that you've had all that time, and you naturally go into a massive low. Never having no money and no job, and not knowing how you're going to create the next chapter in your life, and then you've got family issues, everyone's feeling it, and there's arguments, and you go through that whole spiral that don't want to ever go that way again, but you know what I mean. But I hit rock bottom in that sense, so I've just had to try and find a way of getting through that. And
to be credited, mate, because you've done that, and the BT62 is a reality splashed across magazines here in Australia. Australia very proudly has its own supercar again. There is a hub of industry in Adelaide where we've had motor vehicle plant closures in this country, but you're embracing local industry, and this is a fast, sexy looking car. It's real. It's here. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, telling the story and then thinking where we are today, I go, wow, okay, well, that's been quite a journey, but worth it. The perseverance to get to this point. I knew eventually I would find the right people to do this, because it's a great name. It's known around the world. It's got such brand advocacy. There's a love for it, the love for Jack. There's something really special about it. And I knew there was an opportunity if I got with the right people. And then when I did go to Adelaide and I met up with the guys there, the Fusion Capital and private equity group, and looked at what they were doing and the vision, and with what I wanted to do, it's just like, this makes sense. Like I said, it feels right, and it makes sense. Let's do it. You know what I mean? So to sit here now after that phase of the journey, having built the car, surprised the world with it last year in May at Australia House, was very emotional, standing up there talking, about the journey and Jack and what we've just created and what we've launched. I mean, half my speech was in tears, so it was all that baggage that all came out, and then we've just continued to grow and get the car out there to get people aware of what we're doing. Like you said, Adelaide and Australia have healthy manufacturing in there, and of course when the auto manufacturers disappeared, it left a void, which was the spark for Fusion to do something, because they were involved in supplying parts to the manufacturers, so they were going to get hit as well. As there's a chain reaction all the way through the industry, and it was like great story in terms of full circle. Jack had started here, went over to overseas, dominated the world. Myself, my brothers all went overseas and raced, and now we've done all of that, we got the name back, and we've come back to Australia where it all started, and we're starting again. It's the next chapter. It's the next part of the Brabham story. And to see that Brabham BT62 sitting there or on track, seeing the reaction and the comments from everybody about the brand coming back, the look of the car, the sound of the car, just the project, the amount of people that want to get involved in what we're doing, because it's such a fascinating and interesting, stimulating story. And it's about putting Aussie made stuff on the map, so it's very cool.
And as you say, Aussie ingenuity behind it, but something that looks globally so sharp in sports car or supercar terms. What are we talking here? I think it's 515 kilowatt about 700 horsepower and it weighs less than 1,000 kilos. I mean, it's mighty, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the performance comes from, is the power to weight. And we've got 1,200 kilos of downforce as well. So 5.4 litre Brabham V8. The fact that the car's under a ton, there's not many of these cars are under a ton. In fact, I don't think there is any. So 972 kilograms dry weight, 1,200 kilos of downforce. It's a pure track car. And obviously when we launched, people thought, oh, great, love this, but I'd like to drive it on the road. Okay, so we'll have to look at that. So we looked at it, and we can. We're going to be doing a road legal version of this vehicle. Fantastic. For Australia and in Europe. So that's created more interest, and of course we broke the lap record at Bathurst. So the car's got a bit of fame to it, and it's all it's quite interesting, because it kind of, for me, on my personal journey, it was like as if you imagine yourself going up a mountain with a massive like boulder behind you, and you're trying to get yourself over the top, and you're halfway up, and your legs are shaking because all the shit's happening around you, and that's how it felt. And then as soon as this kind of deal happened, it's like the boulder fell the other side, and the momentum now is just racing. You know what I mean? And there's so much good stuff happening. So when I think back of that journey, and what you put into life is what you get back. There's a lot coming my way, and the family's way. And, my partners in Adelaide, they've gone through it. They've had the vision. They've stretched themselves. They've gone into something new. They've invested, and, together this whole thing is just skyrocketing now, which not skyrocketing, but, it's just the momentum now is really starting to gain.
Most definitely. The aura around it, from people just talking in the streets to, you touched before on Bathurst. You and your brother Jeff have had success at Bathurst. It's an iconic place. To think that you and Luke Yulden were blasting around there early in 2019. And what was the lap? The lap was a 1:58.69, a sub 2 minute lap, quickest we've seen around the mountain by a car like that. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we knew when we built it, the goal was to beat the 2 minute mark. Yeah. And of course, everywhere we've tested, we've broken lap records here in Australia. It's like, okay, and we weren't even trying. So we thought, going to Bathurst, we didn't have many laps at Bathurst. We had 15 minutes on the Thursday just to kind of really get a feel for it. And I didn't drive, but Luke drove, because he's more up to speed than I am in terms of the track and being a current driver as well. And we really went there to do a demonstration, but secretly it was like, we could bang in a lap time here. So we gathered as much information as we could, and then obviously went to just 10 minutes on the Saturday to have a crack. So to see it go under the 2 minutes like that, which it did before, but it didn't quite break the record of the Audi when they took all the restrictors out, which is fine. And to do a 58.6 felt really good for not just for me, but for the whole team who've put so much effort into it. It was a nice reward for everybody.
It means a lot in the automotive industry and the racing industry here. You can't talk too much about it, I know, but the other thing that is happening at the same time is a movie. And it is due for, I think some people prior to the Grand Prix here may have been treated to a little special viewing of it. Tell us what you can about that project.
Well, I've got to be careful what I say, but because it's not out for release yet. But yeah, I got a chance with let's say investors and people involved in the movie, from obviously financially, emotionally, partners who have been part of Aurora Films' journey, and we as a family have supported it once we got to know what they were doing. And you can imagine, I was talking to Akosh Armont, who's the guy behind it, and I found out through Mark Webber and Anne that someone was doing something about Jack. So I managed to kind of, who the hell's this? Because I'd just gone through 7 years of bloody trying to get the name under control, and someone's doing something, so I didn't quite understand it. And so I reached out to them and, oh, yeah, no, we're really sorry. We're going to come to you when we were ready and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah. So we had a Skype call, first Skype call. I've got my arms crossed. I'm kind of looking at them and with a silent look. And Akos and Anthony Waddington's kind of looking at each other like, oh, my God, we're talking to someone at the family. And he looks pissed. No, it's not a good start. And I said, all right, who are you and what do you want? What are you doing? But by the time we finished the conversation, I thought, wow, okay, we've got someone here who's young, ambitious, and they want to tell the story of Jack. His story should be told. It's such an amazing part of our history here in Australia, and abroad, because obviously he was successful over there. And to have something like that could show and demonstrate and carry that legacy forward, it was like, well, we could do nothing but support it. So I helped bring in, all my contacts and, got him in front of Jackie Stewart. I got him in front of Ron Dennis and Bernie Ecclestone and blah, 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 so.
Your prep was excellent then, if that's the case.
Yeah. So, So we saw a preview of it, and I don't want to say too much, but
I wait with interest. I can't wait to see it. It's a great story. Your dad was incredible, mate. Monaco winner, 3-time Formula One world champion during a very special era for the sport, and a feat that will probably never ever be beaten again. To win as a manufacturer. You've driven some of his old cars. Tell us a little bit about that, and they were brave men back then, like the Cooper Climax, for example, and some amazing cars, but very different to now.
Well, they're either brave or stupid. You think sitting in a tubular chassis with fuel tanks strapped to the side of you as the sides of the car, with no safety protection or anything like that. It's no wonder they died back then. So, driving some of these old cars, you do as a driver who's driving current stuff, look at it and go, oh dear, this doesn't feel very safe. But back then they were the state-of-the-art stuff, so they never thought about it. But you're going back in time. You hold the steering wheel. You just sense like you're back then as they felt as drivers. Which is a great experience. This weekend at
Albert Park,
at Albert Park at the Grand Prix, Sam and I are going to be driving two of the old cars, the Cooper T51 that he raced, that Jack won his first world championship in, one of the cars there. And he's going to be driving that, and I'm driving the Repco Brabham BT19, which is the car that he won the world championship in 1966, as you said, the only driver to win a world championship with a car of his own construction. So that will be a very special moment. The BT62 will be on track on Thursday morning doing some hot laps. So we've had the Brabham movie premiere, we've got the hot laps, we're going to be leading the drivers parade. And of course, it's the Jack Brabham trophy, for the winner of the Formula One. So it's pretty cool.
Very, very cool. Awesome to have your son, Sam, out on track there with you. And I think you may have said it in your answer there a minute ago. Forgive me if I'm doubling up here. But it's the first time those two cars have been on track together. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. I don't remember the two actually ever being side by side because they've been owned by different owners in different countries. So I'm pretty sure they've not been together. I don't want to be completely, some historian might say, oh no, but here's a picture. Great, show us a picture. But I don't remember it. So it'd be, I think, quite a unique moment in time to have two championship winning cars like that sitting together.
It's power to the finish here, and you touched on a little something which I think is phenomenal. Third generation names in the Brabham family, doing some racing. Jeff's son Matthew's raced at the Indy 500. Your son's done more recently Carrera Cup in GB there. Favourite racetrack for you, or favourite piece of road that David Brabham enjoys a drive on? Got to be Le Mans, doesn't it?
Oh, anyway, I've always sort of, not always, but you talk about the mindset. Okay. So I ended up having certain favourite tracks and not so favourite tracks in my mind. And I would do better on the ones I liked than the ones I didn't like.
Wow.
I think most people do. If you really love something like that, you just find that extra bit. And so I made a call very early on. No favorites. A track is a track. Just go out there and do your job and enjoy every track. Every track has something different about it. As far as an event, Le Mans, as you touched on, is the most incredible experience for a driver, for a mechanic, for team personnel, to the fans. It's something you actually can't describe. You've got to say, if you want to know what Le Mans is about, just go. You've got to go. You've got to go and experience it, because the atmosphere is electric. It really is. You've got so much history that's attached to that place. You've got 250,000 people around the track who go there because they love the event. They love the history. They love watching all the cars. They love, the manufacturers have been there. All the drivers have been there. The movies that have been done at Le Mans and stuff like that. It's quite an experience. But to know what that experience is like, you've got to have the experience. So you've got to go there.
Probably not something you're doing at the moment, because you have the Grail car in some respects in the beautiful BT62. But is there a little resto project in time that David Brabham might like to do? A little something that you've either got in the garage now that you're working on, or that you would like to get hold of and restore in the future?
I would say in my career, I wasn't really into the historic stuff, just doing what I was doing. And then over the last sort of 6 to 10 years, just started to notice them more. You know what I mean? And
we are getting old.
Yeah, and then, exactly. And then going to places like Goodwood.
Amazing.
Yeah, Goodwood Festival Speed or Goodwood Revival, and you're sitting there, you're watching, or you're even racing in these old cars, and you see so many beautiful old cars with so much history attached to them. The history is what makes them. A car is a car, but what's the history? What's the brand? What's that experience like when you look at that vehicle? And I have to say, my interest in these old cars has definitely increased. So one day I will start to look and see what I can buy or restore or something like that. Yeah.
Nice. One final one that I always ask on Rusty's Garage of any automotive person or race driver, the things that motorists do on our roads that drive you mad. And I can clearly tell from your mindset that, in the right frame, good things happen in a racing sense. Does that apply to the road in some respects, about being calm and patient and things like that? I think it does.
Yeah. As we touched on very early in our conversation, I was a maniac on the roads in Australia. How I survived, how I kept a license, I have no idea. I think it was more about survival than anything else. Going to England in 1988, I don't know what happened, but as soon as I arrived there, I just was a completely different driver on the road. Completely different driver, and have been ever since. So a lot of my racing mates, when we were racing, it's like, don't let Brabs drive, because it's going to take forever to get there. You know what I mean? And they'd end up getting in the car and just driving recklessly and scaring the hell out of me, but because I'm not a very good passenger. But in terms of me driving, and I've had like two speeding tickets in my life, and I think the first one came only 10 years ago.
Wow.
So and because then you have kids and you see how people drive on the road. What I think, if you're asking me that question about what drives you insane, it's people driving too fast on the roads, where you're in a built-up area and there's potentially kids in that area. You know what I mean? As a parent, you've seen them go past quick, and you look at them go past, and they've normally got a loud noise coming out the exhaust or whatever, and they think they're a racing driver or something, I don't know. So anyway, they drive off, and they're obviously getting an experience of what they want in that vehicle. But you look at it and you go, bet they don't have kids. It's like
perspective would be different.
Yeah, and I think we haven't got it right, because the the education around driving up until the point you're allowed to go and drive is very limited.
Yeah.
Very limited. And if we had a longer program for people that, even if it was like a 10-year program where every year they had to go back and just improve on their driving and their awareness and so forth like that, we would have so many less accidents out there. But you'd have to make that program push them into areas in a safe environment that shows them that where the danger comes from. It's not just what goes on outside, it's what's going on inside.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic to sit and talk to you, mate. Thank you on a busy Grand Prix week for your time. One of the few Aussies to win the Le Mans 24-hour. Your brother Jeff did that too. Success, 24 starts in Formula One, success at Bathurst, an incredible record in sports cars. Congrats and all the best as a constructor. Lots of Aussies are very excited about this project. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. And when we go to Le Mans in a Brabham, you come with us, mate.
I'll be there.
If any of the issues raised in this episode have affected you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. That's 13 11 14. Lifeline is a national charity providing all Australians experiencing a personal crisis access to 24-hour support and suicide prevention services. Rusty's Garage is written and presented by me, Greg Rust. Series producer and editor is Alex Mitchell. Audio production by Darcy Thompson.
Listener.